Hey, are you in your 20s? Maybe you just graduated college or you're starting your career. We're gonna talk about some things today as it relates to what you should be looking at in your investment life. And here's your first tip. Einstein once said, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, he who does not pays it. Compound interest and a lot more things you need to know on how to start investing in your 20s. Today on Mindset with Brad Barrett, let's go. Welcome in everybody to Mindset. I am Brad Barrett. This is producer Jared. Today we got a fun one. We're gonna be talking about what you should be investing in and what you should be looking at in terms of your investment life in your 20s. We're gonna talk about managing your debt. We're gonna be talking about aligning your investment goals and what that means to you. We're gonna talk about specific retirement accounts that you should be investing in. And we're also gonna talk about maybe even challenging, if you will, a investment rule of thumb and what you should be looking at in terms of your risk. And we're gonna have a special guest on. He's been on our show before, my business partner, the president of our firm, Pat Bowen. Yes! 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 I figured it'd be good if we're talking about our 20s, I wanna give you guys a firsthand view of what we as advisors, individuals that manage over $7 billion for thousands of clients across this nation, what we would do if we can go back to our 20s and what we advise and suggest for our clients who are in our 20s. So stay tuned for that. It's gonna be a fun show today. Now, quick caveat here. We're using the 20s because statistically speaking, this is when most Americans are starting their career. Maybe they got their degree, their college, whatever age in your 20s, doesn't matter. And we wanna go through this because there were some stats that kind of shook me this week that we wanted to talk about. And according to Bankrate's Retirement Savings Survey, this got me, and I've been in this business for 20 years. More than half, specifically 57% of American workers feel behind on their retirement savings.
That's me. That's me. And I'll tell you this, this topic is really near and dear to my heart because, you know, in my 20s, I was a bit of a late bloomer. In my 20s, I was traveling around Europe. I was, you know, college, whatever. I didn't get my first professional adult job until my late 20s.
Yeah.
And I was working in television. You start off very low rates in television. Not making a lot of money, so I was still broke. And then didn't start I got the first jump probably when I turned about 30. So
you're actually kind of living this out, what we're talking about.
Believe me or not, but I'm speaking my damn truth.
To be honest, I feel like I started so late because I didn't start even saving until after that.
Yeah.
And when the subject comes up, I get anxiety because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm behind.
That's perfect, because let's talk about it, because I also want to say this. I think a lot of people will relate to that. I think it's an important topic for us all to discuss. And with that said, I will also say this, that you may not be in your 20s here and you clicked on this. This is still relevant in your 30s and 40s and all the way up, and I'll show you why here in a minute, so stay tuned. All right, I want to talk about some key points here with all that being said. Keys to start investing early and often. Number one, and I'm just going to kick off with this one, is managing your debt. The debt that makes the most sense to take care of right away is the high interest stuff, obviously. The credit cards, which typically is what I see if you're in this camp, right? If you got debt that's low interest rate, you can probably still make some money on that, still investing, and that's a discussion to be had with your advisor. But the number one key to be able to manage and invest in your future when you're in your 20s is managing your debt. Two, I think comes right out the heels of that, this is a planner in me, is define your investment goals.
This one, I'll be honest, this question, which sounds like, oh yeah, super straightforward.
Yeah.
I have a little trouble with it because it's like my goal is to have a lot of money and to be able to retire and live in leisure. So like, isn't that everyone's goal?
Why do I want this?
Yeah.
Because I want to make bank, bro. I want to drive a Range Rover.
It is. There was an old saying I learned a long time ago. It's like, well, how much do you want to earn in your accounts? And it's a trick question because it's actually not a number. It's a word. It's a four-letter word. More.
Yeah, right. A lot.
The problem with that is there's a never-ending goalpost movement going on.
Yeah.
Right? You're always, and it's like you're not shooting for anything. Another way to think about it is like, when's the last time you got in your car and just drove around aimlessly? Like, we're going somewhere. We're going to work. We're going to pick up the kids. We're going to school, the grocery store. We're going somewhere, right? So why, with something as important as your money, would you not have a destination in mind?
That's fair. Yeah.
Now, I understand that destination can be somewhat vague. It's like, well, this is where numbers come in and planning comes in. This is where an advisor comes in. It's like, okay, what do you want to live off of? Well, Brad, I think I can live pretty comfortably on $8,000 a month. Okay, so how much is coming in from Social Security at 65? We'll put that number in there. Let's say it's $2,000. Now you got to make up $6,000. So we can invert that back to the amount that you need to have in savings to give you a sustainable distribution rate. That's financial planning in a nutshell.
My boy's wicked smart.
That makes sense.
So with that, you can actually define a number. Yeah. See what I'm saying? And this notion, which we're going to talk about here in a minute as well, and I'm going to have my colleague Pat on here to talk about because it's a beautiful conversation around these age-banded discussions of like, hey, okay, Brad, I get that, but like as you get older, you're supposed to get more conservative. And I'm going to challenge that a little bit because, you know, when we understand rate of return relative to your age and what you got going on and how much you're putting in, this whole idea of, well, I thought you're supposed to invest first and only for your risk tolerance. That's an ingredient in this cake we're building, but not the only ingredient. That's the big key takeaway there. One big ingredient here, though, is defining the goal you're going for. What is the outcome you're looking for? So that leads me into, if you're employed, I want to talk about some things because we talked about managing your debt individually. We talked about defining your investment goals and your overall like account balances that you will need. Now let's talk about if you're employed or not. If you're employed right now and your employer has a 401k plan, please start investing in that. It's just that simple.
Would that it were so simple.
To me, that matching, if you're not like maxing that out, you're walking away from free money.
It is free money.
Free money.
Like Milton Friedman always says, there's no such thing as a free lunch. This one, it is free money. I mean, they're literally giving it to you. And they get a benefit for it, but they're giving it to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, max that out.
It's incredible.
Absolutely. It is incredible. And by the way, it's also, if it's pre-tax now Roth on a 401k and an IRA, it has some tax benefits too. So there's just no reason not to. It's a really great wealth building tool. And you know, there's a rule I've used often, and we've said it before, the 70-20-10 rule or the 70-30 rule is a great rule to apply here, especially if you're starting off in your 20s. Well, Brad, how much do I put away for later? Live on 70% of your paycheck, save 20% for short term, and this, what I'm talking about, this last bucket, save 10% for long term. Start there. So if you're making $50,000 a year, put $5,000 away in your 401k. For those of you who don't have an employer, maybe you're freelance or have your own situation going on, the alternative to that is an individual retirement account, which you guys all know is an IRA. Absolutely max that out and put that there. The limits there are about $7,000 for under 50, which is what we're talking about today, for 2025. So try to get as much as you can in there if you do not have a 401k. But those are areas that you all should be investing in when it comes into your 20s. But I wanted to put some math to this because I think this is important to discuss the compound interest as well as the theories of maybe starting later versus starting earlier. So if you did $5,000 into your retirement account a year, starting at age 25 for 40 years, you had a total contribution, if you just do the math, is $200,000 of your own money. But that account could be worth more than $1 million.
$1 million.
The kicker there, the assumption is a 7% rate of return, which historically speaking is actually less than the 30-year average of the stock market, but we want to give some conservative nature to it.
Which is what, about $100 a week based on 52?
52 weeks at 5,000, give or take, yeah. I look at it more like on a monthly, because I think a lot of people do monthly, like bi-weeklies or monthly budgeting or paychecks, right? It's right around just shy of $400 a paycheck, right? A little bit more.
Which in your 20s is considerable.
It's substantial. So this brings me to my next point. I've said this before on other shows, but the real juice to compound interest doesn't happen until the back end of the timeline. And if you look at the amortization, which we all know that word in the mortgage world, but it works in the investing world as well. Amortization is basically the year over year scheduled out of what went in versus earnings.
Yeah, thanks, because
I lost you.
Yeah.
After 20 years, so half this timeline, you put in $100,000 of your own money. The account's worth $204,000. The first 20 years is $200,000. The next 20 years, the balance thereafter is $1 million.
Massive jump.
Huge jump.
In a small amount of time.
5 times.
Yeah.
So you see what I'm saying here? The first 20 years is just kind of like your prep work. It's like laying the foundation, if you will. All the fun, all the joy, all the promise of wealth building happens in the back end. So the biggest takeaway I want to say here is the reason why investing early and often, other than just numbers, makes sense, it also allows you to frame up your outflow. Like if you have $5,000 a year going and you just did that and you never increased it, that would be your number. Versus if you started later, you'd have to increase your dollar amount to keep up with the same time period.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think it needs to be said that, like, it sounds so easy, But that is sometimes a really hard thing to do, especially if like you're not working for months or you're trying to buy a home or things like that. Like it is daunting at the same time.
It is. Now here's the craziest part. If you took 10 years off of that, let's say you started at 35 versus 25, so it's 25% off of 40 years, it's 10 years, right? If you took 25% off of your time, you would actually give up 50% of your balance.
Which is why that gives me such anxiety, because I'm more in that range right there.
So there is an easy fix to it. Easy might be a stretch of the word, but the math works out. Basically, if instead of doing $5,000 a year, someone who started at 35 did $10,000 a year, so you went from a little over $400 a month, a little over $800 a month, you'd have roughly the same number. This is why understanding your investment timeline is hugely important here. But I'd be remiss not to bring up risk. Okay, so the standard thought is that your 20s can be a great time to take on investment risk. Have you heard this before?
I've always heard this. When you're young, be aggressive, and then be more conservative as you get older.
I agree with this for the most part in your early years, okay? I want to just say that, obviously, take that with a grain of salt, meet with your person to go through your specific situation. But the main reasoning before that is you have time to recover. And I agree with that, right? If you're 90 years old, you see what I'm saying? Odds are, unless you're breaking Guinness Book of World Records, you don't have 40 years left on this earth. So
if you lose it, that compound interest, you're going to run out of time to build that
You
back.
don't have that 20 years to kind of build it up and then see the compound interest work for you, right? But the key with being more aggressive or take on this investment risk in your 20s is to stay the course. If you're going to overreact to market situations, bear markets or things like that, be careful, because you're going to be in and out of the market, and that could jolt a portfolio even worse than just going conservative throughout. So you got to talk with your advisor about that and go through it. But understanding your risk tolerance is a big deal to this whole thing.
I am risk adverse.
Yeah.
For the most part.
What made you that way? Do you know? You ever think about that?
I've just always been like,
I've always been curious when people say that. I mean, I get that. I talk to my clients about it, but I always ask, like, why? Have you ever thought about that?
When it comes to money, I think I've just always been like, well, that's my money. I don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
Partially because when I go to gamble, I go to casino.
Yeah.
98% chance I'm walking out with no money left.
You did the ultimate. This whole not that you were doing that per se, but this gambling thing to the investment markets, let me be very clear about something. The stock market, the capital markets is not gambling. I understand the analogy.
It's not, but it is.
It is not. It is not. It is fundamentally designed, if you understand what you're looking for in time in versus timing, it has been proven left and right. There's been no proof that you sit at a blackjack table and over time, it's going to play out for you.
Sure, but
because the odds are, it's like flipping the coin thing, right? Every time you flip a coin, let's say you got 50% chance odds, right?
Yeah.
Every time you flip that coin, the next time you flip, it's the same odds. Nothing changed with that.
True, but like let's say a couple weeks ago, Nvidia, awesome, was banging. You're going like, oh man, that's great. That's skyrocketing. It's doing great. Let me buy a bunch of shares. Let me put 50,000 into that.
Yeah.
Well, a couple weeks back, that thing tanked. And I think the gambling comes in with, we don't know really what a stock is going to do. Or when you get in, I'm not even going to get into like shorting and futures and all this stuff. Because I do think a lot of that is educated guessing gambling.
The way you said that was.
But I mean, from my point of view, and that's probably because I'm not sitting there researching and doing what a lot of advisors do, but it does feel a lot like gambling.
I'm being harsh on it because I think to a lot of people it does. And I just say this, people are scared of the markets because we as human beings don't like what we don't understand. Look, it's hard for me to get behind it knowing what I know and been in this business half my life. There is calculated risk to this, and there is fundamental like earnings and fundamentals to like research and understand when it comes to a market. I get a little heated on the gambling thing. I don't know why.
Man, I touch a nerve, dude.
Apparently.
Sorry. All right.
It's just a tricky one for I think a lot of people. It's just a tricky one. Everyone says it. I'm like, it's not gambling.
It's not gambling.
It's not gambling, man. But I want to say I do understand. I understand the notion most people think about that. I get that. Okay. The invest by age rule.
Anywho,
back to that. The notion I want to bring up, which was number 2 I brought up earlier, which regards to defining your investment goals. This is where I challenge this. Because if you don't know what you need to pull from your overall accounts in retirement, you can't just make this blanketed statement that I'm going to be more conservative when I get older. You know, as investment advisors, as financial advisors, as wealth managers, we have a lot to say about some of these rules when it comes to your risk tolerance as you age. And I thought, you know, it'd be good for us to bring in, like, what does an investment advisory firm who manages over $7 billion for thousands of clients across this nation, what would we say to a 20-year-old as it relates to what they should be looking at in terms of their investments and how they should be investing? And I thought for that I'd bring on my business partner, good friend and friend of the show, and president of our firm, Pat Bowen. Pat, welcome in.
Thanks, Brad. We're starting to make this a habit.
I love it. We're going to make it more and more. The fans are raving. Bring more Pat Bowen back. So here we are.
I doubt that, but okay.
We're going to go with it, though. We're going to go with it. So we were talking today, as I mentioned to you pre-show, around, you know, what you and I as investment managers and financial advisors and, again, wealth managers, whatever the verbiage you want to use, we talk about that a lot on our show, how we would advise or suggest a client in their 20s to be looking at investments. And I brought up this notion of this age-based tolerance as you get older, you're supposed to get more conservative. And I made a comment a couple minutes ago that, you know, we tend to not disagree with that per se, but challenge it. And I just want to ask you and get your take on how would you invest for a 20-year-old, or how would you describe planning for a 20-year-old?
Okay, well, I'll answer the first question, which is how would we invest for a 20-year-old? And candidly, it depends. Some 20-year-olds are very comfortable taking a lot of risk. I mean, I don't know if I should share this story, but I will. Is when I was in university, and like I said before, I didn't have a whole lot of money to play with. I had to put myself through school. I had to work all through school, summers, etc. We had an annual ski trip. We load up a bunch of kids on about 10 buses, and we headed to Canada one year for a 1-week trip, or Colorado. And, you know, you're talking 26-hour trips. Well, the ones to Colorado always had a stop in Vegas. And me and some of my friends decided to get the bright idea, and I think I was sort of leading the charge. And this is completely contrary to my risk profile. I took a $100 bill, which probably was the only one I had to my name at that time, and we went into the casinos to get a meal, and I put it all on black and let them roll the roulette wheel. And it landed on black, fortunately. So we just had some extra beer money, I guess is the way it goes. But some 20-year-olds, and by the way, they don't have to be 20. They could be 30, 50, 80. They have a very high tolerance for risk. They're very comfortable with that risk. And they're very comfortable with the fact that they could lose money. Sometimes all their money, sometimes just some of their money. And others would never have done that.
You're right. I mean, risk tolerance, timeline, also doing it on your own versus having an advisor with you. Like, there's a lot of different things to consider, you know, when we talk about this world of investing early and often. But I will say this, and I want to ask if you agree with this, but the one common denominator I think we all can agree on is, if you can, investing early and often tends to build a better wealth building strategy over time. Would you agree with that statement?
Oh, absolutely. There's candidly nothing better than getting started early. And I mean, you've probably on the show at some point in time discussed the powers of compounding. It is absolutely remarkable. And I'm assuming you've maybe have ever, and if not, that would be a fun show, is to go with that old penny parable. Would you rather have $1 million or a penny doubled every day for a month? 30
we just
days?
Did that. People loved it.
It's remarkable. And so to your point, yeah, you got to start early and stay invested though. A lot of times people will start early and then they'll pivot and they'll see the account growing a little bit and they'll go, I need a new car. Let me go grab some of that money. Allow that money to keep growing, because all of a sudden, if it was the rule of 72 and your money's going to double depending on your rate of return, using the rule of 72, whether it's in 10 years or 7 years or 8 years or 5, 5 might be a little aggressive, but let's just go with the 5 to 10 year range where you might be able to double your money. If anything doubled in less time than that, it was pure luck. Let's just be totally honest.
That's
pure luck.
That right there is good advice and good counsel for anyone watching that. You're talking about a guy who's been managing billions of dollars for over 30 years now. I mean, this whole get-rich-quick scheme or these things that happen fast, yes, it's possible. Is it sound advice or sound counsel to lean on for your planning? Probably not. I love that you said that because I totally agree.
And when we think of risk, and we talked about it a moment ago, it's calculated risk. Okay, my calculation on the risk betting on black was, I'm young. I got maybe a 50-50. It's not quite. I had about a 47-48% chance of winning.
Yeah.
In my mind, that was decent enough chance. I'll be all right. And that's gambling. What we're talking about is investing. They are not one and the same. They're not even actually in the same universe.
Thank you.
Investing is about fundamentals and looking at whatever the opportunity might be. I can loan money to someone or a company or a province or a city or a state municipality. I can actually invest money, my capital, in their business opportunity in the form of equity, own stock in the company and participate in the growth or the upside. But I'm going to do it with calculated risk because I've studied the company.
So in your own opinion, how much information or knowledge does a 20-year-old need to know about the stock market to start investing or even start working with an advisor?
That's an interesting question. I think the answer is, in my view, they don't really have to know much about the stock market to start investing. And I'm going to use the caveat with an advisor, because you got to have a plan. Hope and just throwing it out there. Remember back to my story of I had a choice, black, red, or there are two green dots, and those did not have good odds. So I had a choice between one or the other. That literally was hope. There is no other way to define it. It was pure hope. They had the same odds. I just happened to get lucky that moment in time. The smart thing I did is I grabbed the other $100 and I left the room. So I think for a 20-year-old, it can be intimidating to just get started if they don't have any knowledge. And without knowledge, you likely don't have much comfort. So frankly, what you should do is that should not be the thing that prohibits you from starting the investing, because starting early is what's critical for your success in the long run. And sharing that one piece of knowledge with somebody in their 20s is critical and important, that they understand the concept of the power of compounding, whatever way we can get them to understand that. And then they need to know, well, I don't know how to do this. I don't have the time, the bandwidth. It's not my specialty to go study companies and businesses and financial statements and economics. That's not what I'm good at. So hire somebody, use professional advice to create a plan and help you stick to the plan and have the discipline to stay on plan.
I love it. I mean, that's well said. Making sure anyone watching here is in their 20s, making sure you don't get paralysis by analysis, as they say. Get with somebody, work through it, but end of the day, it's either day one or one day, right? That old philosophy. So make it day one. And well said. I totally agree with that. Hey, with that, I want to thank you, Pat. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to have you on here real soon, so everyone stay tuned for more Pat Bowen.
I appreciate it, Brad. Thank you very much.
All right, Pat. Talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
So as you can probably see, we try to bring some advising world of how we would look at a rule of thumb like that to you all. But with that, I want to put a bow on today's episode and just kind of wrap up a few things. Number one, the earlier you get started, the better. I think that's just a blanket statement. Understanding that compound interest is a friend to you. I think, believe it or not, that logic and that education will get you so far in life. I can promise you that if you understand compound interest, it just works for you.
I don't like math, but I like that math.
And you don't have to like math to know that compound interest. If you just understand that after the first 20 years is nothing, it's that last 20 years.
It's the good stuff.
Okay, it's the good stuff. Third one I want to bring up is, look, talk to an advisor. I will always say this. I think it's just something you need to know, and is having that person in your corner to help, if nothing else, help you keep you on your own path. And once you start investing, try to keep it disciplined and keep going. That's the whole point. The consistency is what matters here. As always, I hope you enjoyed that show today. We had some fun with it. We'll probably do some more of these segments for like what to invest in and what's looking at your 30s and 40s, maybe down the road.
I'm in my 40s.
I mean,
I need a little bit of that help.
So, we'll probably do some more of these. So, as always, again, leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. We love it if you share the video. And thank you for all of our subscribers who watch every week. We love you guys. We're excited because next year we're going to talk about actually a subject matter that I do know ahead of time that is near and dear to our hearts, and it is
worth.
Worth.
What are we worth?
Look, we've used this word a lot on our show, worth, and we're going to talk about worth as it relates to money as well as inner worth. And I think, believe it or not, those two ingredients together, actually create a pretty good outcome. With that, hey, as always, if you lead with love, everything's going to be all right. Until next week, we'll see you guys then.